Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Daniel had always placed immense value on meaningful, genuine relationships. To him, love was built on a foundation of trust. The idea of invading someone's privacy or constructing a relationship from a place of insecurity was completely foreign to him. He had always known that true connection was grounded in openness and respect. So when he met Lena, it felt as though he had finally found someone who shared his values. She was confident, intelligent, and had a clear vision for her future, approaching life with an energy that naturally drew others in. The bond between them grew quickly, effortlessly, as they built a life based on mutual respect and companionship. They shared everyday tasks with ease, finding joy in the smallest of victories. For a long time, Daniel was completely content, never second-guessing their connection. That was until the day Lena unexpectedly introduced a new co-worker, Ryan. It happened on a Saturday afternoon during a laid-back barbecue at a mutual friend's house. Daniel had arrived early, as he had promised to help with the preparations. He set up tables, lit the grill, and chatted with the other guys while seasoning meat on the porch. Lena had said she would be coming later, still finishing up work. Everything had been planned. Daniel felt relaxed and content, looking forward to a peaceful day with friends. But when Lena finally arrived, she wasn't alone. She walked in with Ryan and a few other co-workers. Daniel was busy preparing drinks when she approached, her familiar smile lighting up her face. With a casual air, she said, "Honey, this is Ryan, the one who always helps me with projects at the office." Daniel extended his hand, trying to remain polite, but something about the situation immediately made him feel uneasy. It was hard to pinpoint exactly why, but Ryan exuded a kind of overconfidence, as if he already knew his presence would leave a mark. His tone, the way he looked at Lena, the inside jokes they exchanged in front of everyone, all of it made Daniel uncomfortable. The feeling settled deep inside him. Like a growing restlessness he couldn't shake off. As the afternoon went on, Daniel did his best to act normal, to blend in. But his eyes were always on Ryan. He noticed how Ryan positioned himself close to Lena, making sure to share stories in which she was the center of attention. He recalled small, seemingly insignificant details from past conversations with ease, and spoke to her with an unsettling familiarity, as if they had a private world no one else was allowed into. Lena laughed, though Daniel couldn't tell if she was genuinely unaware or simply pretending not to notice. At one point, Ryan headed into the kitchen, and Daniel saw his chance. He followed him, his mind racing, wanting nothing more than to look this man in the eye and understand what it was about him that stirred such a discomfort. As Ryan turned around, he flashed a smile that was almost too perfect, too knowing. He leaned slightly closer and asked, "Do you work in events too?" "Lena talks about you a lot at the office." Daniel answered coldly, holding his gaze. "No," and he looked away without extending the conversation. Inside, something had already changed. From that day on, Daniel started noticing small things. Not because Hugh was looking for problems, but because Lena's behavior seemed different. And center of that change was always Theseum name, Ryan. During casual dinners, she'd talk about how productive he was, how creative, how he'd saved a project at the last minute. Once they even argued because Daniel asked directly, "Are you sure he's just a co-worker?" Lena laughed it off, as if it were the most ridiculous thing in the world. But that laugh left a bitter taste, because when someone chooses to laugh instead of answering clearly, they're usually hiding something. Despite that discomfort, Daniel tried to keep living normally. He worked, took care of the house, made plans with her, but Heckle didn't see Lena the same way anymore. Every laugh on the phone, every message Ash said was work-related. Every time she left for long team meetings, everything started to weigh on him. Their relationship that once felt light turned into a constant exercise in self-control. He avoided asking too many questions base he knew how insecure that could end, and he never wanted to be that kind of man. But inside he was quietly falling apart. The turning point came during a regular breakfast when Lena mentioned there would be a company team-building trip to a nearby lake. She said it would last the whole weekend, that several co-workers were going. And Thatched already confirmed her attendance. Daniel, without looking away, asked Holz was going. Lena listed a few names and finally added casually, "Oh, Rian's going too." That was enough. He took a deep breath and without changing his tone, without irony or accusation, simply said, "If you go, then don't come back." She stared at him for a few seconds, surprised. She tried to brush it off like it was a joke, asking if he was being dramatic. Daniel stayed silent. It was as if all pieces had finally clicked in his mind. It didn't matter anymore whether there was proof, whether she admitted it or denied it. The trust that once felt solid as stone was now dust. And when that kind of ruin happens, no argument can hold together what's already been destroyed. Lena tried to stay calm and said she'd always been loyal, that she'd never given him a reason to doubt her. "I've always been here." Daniel. Present, honest, open. "I've never hidden anything from you. Never acted behind your back, so why are you looking at Menno like I'm a stranger?" She asked, her voice trembling with hurt and frustration, and again he looked at her and repeated, "If you go then, don't come back." Lena looked away, muttered something like, "The choice is yours," and walked off from the table. He just stayed there staring at his plate with no appetite, his chest filling with a growing emptiness. That morning, Daniel realized that sometimes a single unfamiliar presence is enough to reveal the whole truth. Lena went. She packed a small suitcase, some light clothes, a pair of sandals, and the sunscreen she kept for trips. She put on perfume, fixed her hair in the living room mirror, and left Fee House like it was just another weekend. Without hesitation, without looking back, as if the words Daniel had said days earlier were just a jealous outburst. Something that would pass? As if he'd be waiting there like he always shad until she returned and pretended everything was still the same. But this time, something had already changed. Hadn't asked for explanations or tried to make her change her mind. He just watched. Every step she took toward Theodore felt like a final period for inside him. As soon as she passed through the gate, Daniel sat on the couch, crossed his arms, and took a deep breath as if gathering strength. He stayed there 4 hours, not turning on the TV, no music, no distractions, just his thoughts filling every space. It wasn't anger. It was a strange kind of clarity. For the first time, he wasn't wondering what she was doing, who, with, or where. He was thinking gently about himself, how he'd let things get to this point, how he'd stayed silent so many times to preserve something that no longer existed. That same afternoon, he got up and went straight to the bedroom. He gathered her suitcases, boxes of old papers, photos from when they still pretended to be happy, her work clothes, her favorite shows, the books stacked beside the bed, and the jewelry forgotten in drawers. He separated everything. Every item she'd left in that place was carefully packed, as if closing a chapter. There was no rush, no hesitation. He knew exactly what he was doing. Heckled her parents and told them he'd be sending everything the next day. He just asked them to be home to receive it. Then he locked the door and set a new key on the electronic lock. He canceled her access permissions to the shared account, changed the alarm code, delete photos from his phone, and updated the passwords for the emails and social media accounts they'd once shared for convenience. With each small adjustment, he felt like was reclaiming a piece of himself, and as painful as it was, a growing lightness came with it. He slept without regret. For the first time in months, petrally rested, free from the weight of doubt, no need to pretend he was calm. 3 days later, around noon, he heard the doorbell. He knew it was her. Daniel stayed where he was, listening to their repeated knocks. Lena kept at it for almost 10 minutes. She tried calling, sent messages, left voicemails, all ignored. Outside, she saw the delivery notice taped to the mailbox. Delivery completed. Items delivered as requested. Her parents' names were signed below. Finch understood he'd done it all in advance, followed through on what he said, and it wasn't a bluff. She tried peering through the window slit. Beauty of everything inside seemed silent. Eventually, neighbor's dog stopped barking as if respecting the silence of that decision. Lena sat on the front steps and waited for nearly an hour. She sent more messages now with a more subdued tone. "Daniel, let's talk. You're overreacting. I just went on a work trip." But at that moment, nothing mattered anymore. The excuses came too late and sounded empty. He remained silent. In that house, Theodore was locked from the outside, but what was truly inaccessible was he shut. After a while she left. She walked away without dignity, without answers, with the bitter taste off knowing that this time she'd lost control of the story. Daniel got up from the couch, walked to the door, and looked through the peephole. He saw Thegate close. He leaned his forehead against the cold wood and stayed there for a few seconds. The silence in the house was an exact reflection of what he felt, an ending, an emptiness, release. He went to the kitchen, drank a glass of water, and returned to the bedroom.
He opened the closet and saw the empty spaces. For the first time, they didn't bother him.
It was as if that absence was necessary, as if every empty inch was no free territory. The pain was there, obvious, but it was a clean pain. A pain that didn't hurt more than it already had over the past months. Later, he got a call from his in-laws. Lena's mother, speaking softly, asked if was okay, if he wanted to talk. If it wouldn't be better to reconsider. Daniel thanked her for her concern and said there'd been no fight. No anger, just a boundary that had been crossed and could no longer be ignored. The woman tried to argue, but he gently interrupted. I've always respected your daughter, he said, but now I need to respect myself too. And he hung up. In the days that followed, Lena kept trying to reach him. She called at random times, showed up at his workplace, left messages with mutual friends. With each attempt, he stayed firm. He refused to continue the cycle. The decision wasn't impulsive. She'd had her chance to listen, understand, reconsider, and she chose a different path. Daniel chose his with fewer words. Less confusion, fewer excuses. He was tired of waiting for honesty. Days later, settled in her childhood room, Lena spent most of her time laying down, scrolling through her phone, waiting for a notification from Daniel that never came. Her parents' house was exactly as she remembered, quiet, smelling of lavender and freshly brewed coffee. But the comfort of family routine only deepened the weight of watched lost. In the first few days, she spoke little, just said things weren't going well and avoided the topic. Until an ordinary morning, as she spread butter on toast and stirred her coffee without appetite, her mother sat across from her and looked directly into her eyes. With a firm but gentle tone, she asked, Daughter, what happened? Tell me how it really happened between you and Daniel. Lena took a deep breath, put that knife down on her plate, and looked at the floor for a few seconds as if carefully choosing her words. He got strange. Mom, really strange. Started doubting everything. One day, he told me that if I went on the trip with my coworkers, I shouldn't have come back home. I thought he was of reacting that it would pass. I went in when I got back. He'd already sent all my things here. Changed the locks, blocked everything, didn't even want Todek, just erased me from his life. Her mother stayed silent, absorbing her daughter's version. She slowly shook her head and replied with indignation. Daniel has always been a decent man. I've always liked him. I never imagined Ed could do something like this. Kicking you out like you were nothing. That's cruel. I understand couples argue, but this went too far. He lost his mind. He needs to listen to someone with sense. Hours later, driven by an almost maternal impulse, the mother-in-law decided she needed to look Daniel in the eye. She grabbed her bag and drove to his house. She rang the doorbell firmly and waited. Daniel, seeing who it was, hesitated for a second, but opened the gate. He didn't seem surprised. He let her in, gestured toward the sofa, and stayed standing, watching. She sat with the posture of someone who'd rehearsed every word. Daniel, I've always respected you, always since the day I met you. I never imagined you'd do something so extreme. You love my daughter. You always have. And now out of nowhere you throw it all away like this. You send her away like trash. I understand you might have been upset about the work trip, but that's normal. People do that, but this was too much. At the very least, you should have a listen to what she had to say. Daniel listened in silence. He crossed his arms, his expression calm. When she finished, he didn't counter any of the accusations. He simply turned, walked to a drawer in the living room cabinet, and pulled out a brown envelope. He handed it to her with the same calmness he'd offer a glass of water. She looked at the envelope, confused. What is this? Hess simply replied, the truth. With trembling hands, the mother-in-law opened the envelope and pulled out 3 photos printed on that paper. In the first, Lena and Ryan walked side by side, holding hands on a grassy areaway from the main lodge. In the second, they sat on a wooden bench, talking very close. In the third, under the shade of a distant tree, they were kissing. It was in a quick peck, not a friendly gesture that could be mistaken. It was sentiment clear, definitive. She stared at the images for a long time. She didn't speak. Her eyes started to water, but not from anger, from disappointment. Finally, she carefully closed the envelope as if sealing a secret she never wanted to reveal, and looked at Daniel with a mix of shame and respect. You'll always be welcome in our home. I'm sorry I came here without knowing the truth. He didn't say anything, just gave a slight nod. She understood. Can I keep the photos? Daniel nodded, looking her straight in the eye. Without another word, she stood up, held the envelope against her chest, and left insolence. And he, standing in the living room, remained firm. He no longer needed to prove anything to anyone. Days before facing his mother-in-law. Still on the morning Lena left for the company trip. Daniel waited for her to close the gate, watched her car disappear down the street. Then picked up his phone, opened the browser, and typed private investigator plus name of the city where the lodge was located. From the results, he chose a well-reviewed agency with an office just a few miles from where the group would spend the weekend. He called immediately. The voice on the other end was calm, professional. Daniel explained the basics. His wife was going on what was supposed to be a team building trip. He suspected a specific co-worker knew the lodge's name, street, neighborhood, and the car she drove in. He sent photos of Lena and Ryan, described the backpack she'd bring, the approximate times, and asked for complete discretion. The investigator thanked him for the information and said he'd start that some afternoon. Daniel hung up and moved through the house as if everything were normal. On Sunday night, before Lanevin parked her car in front of the house, he'd already received the report. 3 photos sent by email showed exactly what he feared and confirmed that his gut feeling was more accurate than he'd wanted. It was early evening when Lena arrived home from work. She was tired, her head full, her steps dragging. She expected silence, maybe a warm meal on the stove, and her mother's understanding gaze. But when she opened the door, she found something different. Her father sat on the couch, hands clasped, staring at the floor. Her mother beside him, tense, eyes fixed on her from the moment she walked in. The air was heavy, almost suffocating. Before she could ask anything, her mother spoke with a firmness she hadn't shown in years. Please, daughter, sit down. We need to talk. Lena sat slowly, her heart racing. She shivered when she saw the envelope on the coffee table. Her mother picked it up gently, as if revealing something she herself still hadn't processed. Without saying a word, she pulled out photos, the same ones Daniel had handed over. In silence, she placed them in front of her daughter. Lena stared at the first, her and Ryan holding hands. The second, the 2 of them sitting very close. The third, the kiss, the moment frozen on paper. The silence was broken by her father's deep voice. Is this what you were hiding from us? Is this what you did to the man who gave you everything? Lena began to tremble. She tried to stammer something, but her throat was dry. I made a mistake. I slipped. It was just a moment. Only a moment. Words came out disjointed. She tried to justify the unjustifiable. Her mother stood up, breathing deeply, eyes wet, not from sadness but from shame. You lied to me, Lena. I went to his house. I argued with him. I defended you like a mother protecting her child with the very thing she had. I left there feeling humiliated, like I'd taken a moral beating. He didn't yell, didn't raise his voice. He just showed me this, and now I understand everything. My God, what have you done? Lena collapsed into tears. She tried to explain. Said she'd been carried away by impulse, that she thought Daniel didn't look at her the same way anymore. She said Ryan was just an escape, that it all happened fast and without intention, but no sentence seemed strong enough to erase what the photos showed. Her father stood up without looking at her and walked to the bedroom, Two disappointedos stay in that room. Her mother, still standing, crossed her arms and said, not with anger but with a trembling voix, "You threw away the respect he had for you and ours too. Now you'll have to learn to live with the silence of those who loved you and expected more from you." Then she left, leaving Len alone with the photos on the table, staring at the printed fragments of the mistake that would change her life forever. The divorce was finalized insolence without fights, without scandals. Just the quiet acknowledgement that they'd been apart for a long time. Lena tried to start a relationship with Ryan, the coworker who unknowingly had triggered Daniel's suspicions, but Ryan made it clear from the start he didn't want anything serious, just moments. That hurt more than she imagined. Emotionally drained and with no motivation to continue that routine, Lena quit her job. With her share from settlement, she thanked her parents for their support and decided to start over. She chose a smaller, quieter town where no one knew her. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she was finally starting life the right way, with fewer illusions and more truth. Daniel, on the other hand, moved forward at his own pace, without rush, without guilt. Gradually, Lena became just a distant memory. He started smiling morosely, enjoying small moments, an afternoon with friends, a quiet lunch with a good book, a walk with no set time to return. The lightness that once seemed impossible was now part of his days. And as unlikely as it seemed, had discovered that life could in fact go on and even surprise him. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.